a lot of opponents to the La Liga, for example, and I'm not even sure about the five-star movement as such, but definitely Salvini, La Lega Nord, they've been criticized by, let's say the BBC or the Economist or the New York Times, the dominant mainstream liberal press from England and well, the English speaking, so US and England. But they've been criticized as fascist, anti-immigrant, racist, xenophobic parties, and that's what everybody focuses on, and so it's seen as a sort of rightward shift towards fascism. But how do you address that issue?
Well, MoviSol is not the Lega. I had to specify this when we announced the endorsement of the candidacy of Marco Zanni. We are super partes. We have always kept above the parties because as a voter myself, it is hard for many Italians to choose a party. The Lega has problems, as also the five-star party has problems, but I wouldn't call them fascist. This is, of course, the British line and the line of Macron. He also called them brown shirts because they were giving him trouble. Exactly on this question of particularly on the refugees, because there is of course it is wrong to just close the harbors. I have to say, I am in favor of saving lives, but it is not wrong to fight illegal immigration because they have been making money, and much of this money has been going to ISIS and terrorists. We had a lot of these foreign fighters coming with the excuse of refugees. And it is understandable that people are scared. There is a certain amount of scare.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to become racism. We are against racism for sure. But for example, at our conference in Milan, we had the speech of Senator Tony Iwobi, who is Nigerian, he's African himself. And he was first in charge of the refugee policy of the Lega. Now he's a member of Senate, and he has been working with the Transacqua project, which is a project to refill Lake Chad, which is one of these many infrastructural projects in which China and Italy are involved together.
Yeah, it's a massive project for the development of Africa.
Exactly. They are the only China. Exactly. China is the only one which is investing in Africa. And this is the solution. The solution is not...
This actually may be one of the biggest projects ever done in African history.
I think it is, yes. It goes back to IRI and Bonifica, which is an Italian company. It was developed. We are in touch. We have been working. And there was a speaker of Bonifica at our conference in Milan. Of course, I emphasize more the government and Helga Zepp-LaRouche, but this question of a Marshall Plan for Africa has been raised also by some people in the Lega, including Salvini, saying we have to solve the problem of Africa, developing the country, so that people don't have to come to it.
And it's so hypocritical, as you mentioned, with Macron. I mean, calling Salvini a fascist when you just mentioned that they closed the border. They closed the border with Italy because of the refugees. The hypocrisy is just so galling and upsetting when I hear these things, because and they keep trying to put people on the defensive. And there's nothing wrong with people defending against illegal immigration, because the other thing about there is a cultural question that, and as someone from Trinidad and Tobago, we are a small country of 1.3 million people. We live just 7 miles away from Venezuela, which is, I can't remember the figure, 27 million, I think the population is, and we have refugees coming all the time because of the instability there. They can wipe us out, right? If it's just 1% of the population comes, that's it for us. and
Yeah.
and our civilization will be dead. Don't we have the right to say no? We can take some, but not all, and this is insane. It is absolutely insane. I wanted to point out to another hypocrisy, because I think hypocrisy bothers me a lot. But
Yeah, it bothers me too.
the hypocrisy of the left in Europe again. Now, the left and the liberals, who claim to be, for human rights and they care for the people and democracy and all this sort of thing, but yet they are on the side of austerity, on making the poorest people even poorer, on making sure countries pay back debt so that the banks can have. So in other words, countries take on debt, and that debt goes straight back to the banks to pay the banks, and people's wages are supposed to be lowered, and countries are supposed to sell off their national assets to the companies, the same companies from those countries in Germany and America and where else, where they take over all the assets. And
right.
So that is supposed to be the caring left. and the
Yes.
fascists are the ones who are saying, no, we don't want austerity for our poor people. We want we want jobs and employment. And these people are the fascists.
Yes.
I just
Yes, you're raising a very important issue which was the key for this election of Salvini and Di Maio in last May, because the previous government, in particular the one of Renzi and Boschi, they were all both involved with Banca Etruria, Monte dei Paschi, these Tuscany banks which collapsed and were heavily involved in derivative speculation. Right. So much that they were under investigation because the Italian government was essentially supporting these banks and indirectly supporting them, their right. families. So this was a big issue for the Italian population because people lost their jobs. A lot of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, there were like 500 who committed suicide because they couldn't keep their companies and the banks wouldn't give the credit anymore, while they had money, tons of money for these banks who were speculating. So this is one of the reasons why many people voted for the Lega and the Five Star Party, because they had Glass-Steagall in their platform, and it is in the government program now, which is what MoviSol had been campaigning in Italy for the last 10 years. So it is a little bit our contribution to this government program, where we say speculators should not be paid back by the state. Right. We should stop this financing of speculating. We should, for sure, pay back the small contributors, or make sure that the savings of the retired people, which were lost in many cases. So
many people that all their retirement is gone, and and it's fascist to defend that.
Yes, and the left, they are known as the party of the banks.
Yes, exactly.
How they became known.